Hello, friends. Welcome and namaste. Let's start in our upright posture and just take a few moments turning inward before we bring movement into it. So, as you find yourself in that upright posture, last week we played with finding the middle of the buttocks bones. So, to put that simplistically, I'm not too far forward, I'm not too far back, I'm even front to back, right? And I'm not too far with my weight to the right or the left. I'm right in between from right to left. I'm directly in between. And as those buttocks bones, push them down just a little bit, right? That's that root to rise. As they root down, the spine rises up nice and gently. We don't have to force it, push it. So some muscles turning on to hold you here, but what can soften? You may already be able to feel that in your body. When I'm talking us through a scan, I often bring us to the muscles of the face, particularly the jaw, the neck, the shoulders, the belly, pelvic bowl, and the hips. Those are some of the most common places people hold tension. Let's take just a few moments with the breath. You don't have to change it immediately. You can simply notice how you're breathing. That gives us a well of information about where we are in our body and what our nervous system is doing. And just a reminder, if you're shallow and only breathing in your chest and breathing more rapidly, pardon me, that's usually when we're in our fight, flight, or freeze. And if it happens that we're letting our belly gently move, right, and the breath is a little, what I'm going to say, deeper and slower, that tends to mean that we are in the rest and digest part of our nervous system. One is not inherently bad, one good. We just want to make sure we don't get stuck in one all the time, right? We need both. And then let's go ahead and open the eyes. And we're actually going to come up to standing. So last week we talked about the feet. I'm still going to bring that into the work we're doing today, but we're going to talk about how much the position of the feet is connected to or correlated to the position of your femur bones, your thigh bones. And so make your way up to standing, and you can get rid of the blanket, right, for now. I want to break this down and take the time because so many students and private clients that I work with who have sciatica or really tight pain in the hip, low back, this is often a pattern that I have noticed in people, right? So if we have our feet, go ahead and join me. If we have our feet turning out like what I call duck-footed, right? And our feet are turning out, that means our thigh bone is also turning out. It's called external rotation. If my toes are pointing forward, my thighs usually start to move forward, right? And then if I go pigeon-toed, my thigh bones are probably moving towards internal rotation. Some people naturally go this way more, but most of us go to external, and so this is the hardest of the three, right? And then go ahead and just let your feet come back to where they naturally come. So I want to do that again, but with your awareness in the buttocks and the low back. So pardon the view of my buttocks, but that's where the information is. So again, I want you to go ahead and turn your toes and your thigh bones out. And when you do that, just notice if you can't feel how there's compression coming in, right? So there's this movement in, and everything moves into the midline on the back side of the body. Now turn your toes and your thigh bones forward. There's a release of that, right? The muscles aren't as bound. And now try pigeon toed. Make sure your toes and your thighs are connected. Don't go so far in with your toes that the knees get cranked because the thighs can't do that, right? And of course, then there's even a little more of an opening in that area. And you can play with that on your own if that doesn't make sense or you're not feeling that. And of course, you might have a different thing. Your body, almost everyone that I've worked with, right, can feel that variation in the low back. So we're going to play with that a little bit because if you're constantly standing out, the majority of the population, again, is duck-footed, external rotation of the thighs. We have this compression. The muscles that externally rotate the thigh get really short, right? And that can be not so great over time. So we're going to play a little bit with trying to find neutral rotation and playing with that. So you can come to the front of your mat if you'd like, but you're fine wherever on your mat for this first bit. Try to have your toes forward. Now, if anyone has a sensitive knee and that hurts the knee, or you notice your knees are turning in, you might have your foot turned out a little bit. You can kind of bend your knee, make sure your knees are going straight forward. I think knees are way important than toes, right? And then go ahead and stand up. And I don't have to talk about the thighs through the feet. It's just the easiest way for most people to find them. So we're looking for neutral rotation in your thigh bone, right? And then when I bring myself to neutral rotation, for some of us, our tailbone kind of sticks out behind us. So imagine if I put a block on your tailbone and your thighs moved back, but your tailbone moved forward. You'll feel that pelvis come into play, right? And then from there, inhale, reach your arms out and up. Exhale, folding forward. Feel free to bend the knees. We've done nothing to stretch the legs. Hands on shins, lengthen that spine. Exhale, fold. And reach those arms out. Hands could totally be on hips if that feels better in your low back. Maybe arms reach up, and maybe palms come together. And then we're going to exhale our hands to our heart. We're going to do this a few times just to educate that thigh, hip, pelvis area, right? Inhale, reach those arms out and up. Now, when you fold forward, this is last week, right? Does your weight go back? Do your hips go way back? Can you keep some of the weight in the ball mounds of the toes and try not to let your hips move back too far? Inhale, reach the chest forward. Exhale, fold. Soften the neck. Inhale, root those feet down again. Don't let the hips move back as you come all the way up. And exhale, bring the hands down. Watch me for just a second because I see this all the time when I teach. I used to do it all the time. We inhale up and then we move the hips way back. A lot of us lock out our knees potentially, or many of us, I don't know about a lot. So I'm saying, can you keep your hips from moving so far back? That's that equal distribution of the weight in the feet. Let's try it one more time. Inhale, reach those arms out and up. Exhale, feel free to bend the knees a little bit so you don't hyperextend. Keep some weight in the ball mounds of your toes. Inhale, reach the chest forward. Exhale, fold, soft neck. And inhale, reach those arms out. And again, you can leave your hands on the hips the whole time, especially if you have low back issues, or exhale, hands to the heart. So now we're going to add in just a little bit of complexity. Take a block. If you don't have a block, you could try to find a book that's not too heavy, right? Something that's about hip distance that you can hold between your thighs. And I'm going to ask you to really try to get it up by your pubic bone, right? And this is because that's the part of your adductors, your inner thighs, we're going to work with. So then we can really get the feel for them. So I come back into Tadasana. My weight distributed equally, front to back, right to left. Inhale, reach those arms out and up. So don't let the hips go back. That's still on the table, right? But move the block back, not your hips, but your inner groin roll back. Inhale, reach that chest forward. Exhale, fold. And as you come up, don't let your hips move back, but try to roll your block back. Don't let your block roll forward. And exhale, hands to the heart. You can be arms down by your side just to get a little closer camera-wise, right? So when people start to fold forward, some of us, the hips move back, but we also move the block forward. Our legs really want to go into external rotation. So I'm asking the inner thighs to move back like I was pulling that block back, right? So that I keep my legs in neutral rotation. Let's try that one more time. Inhale, reach the arms out and up. Keep the weight distributed in the feet, but move the block back with your inner thighs. Inhale, reach the chest forward. Exhale, fold. And again, keep moving that block back as you come up without moving the hips back. Exhale, bring those hands down and bring your arms down. I think this is really worth the time. I think I already said that, but not everybody has this pattern, but those of us who do, this is really important work. So thank you for your patience. We're going to do a half salutation again, and just to show you how sloppy it is, when we get our hands down, I'm going to say go to downward dog. I just take a whole bunch of steps in order to get into downward dog, right? So it's not necessarily your prettiest transition. So find yourself standing upright, weight distributed from front to back, from right to left. That's last week's work, right? Inhale, reach those arms out and up. As you fold, hips do not move back, but inner groin, the block moves back. Hands on shins. Reach that chest forward, and here's this transition. You're going to bend your knees till your hands can get down, and then start to walk, as many steps as you need to take. Right? Now bend your knees a little bit here. Let's find the spine first. Push your hands forward and down, lengthen that spine. Right? That was the end of last year. We worked that. So keep that, and now start to reach your heels down to the ground. Imagine that I grabbed the block at the back of your thighs. You wouldn't let me have it, but I would pull it and you would feel your inner groin moving back. If you're like, huh? And you can bear the weight on one hand, you can put one hand on the front side of the block. You can push the block back till you feel your inner groin move back. And then release that. Come to downward dog. And exhale, walk your hands back to your feet. Inhale, reach the chest forward. Don't move the hips back, move the thighs back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach the arms out. Move that block back. Right here is usually when it wants to push forward for many of us, right? Exhale, hands down. So we're going to do that one more time, and we're actually going to come down onto our bellies. I'd love you to keep the block in there for a moment, but make sure the block is flush with your thighs so that when you lay down, it's not too obtrusive, right? Just go ahead and pitter patter up to the top of your mat. Inhale. Hopefully this is becoming familiar. Exhale, fold. Move the block back, but not your hips. Inhale, reach the chest forward. Bend your knees, plant your hands. Step, 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 step back. And this time, instead of downward dog, I want you to come to the top of a push-up, a plank, right? Again, imagine me pushing, pulling that block up to the ceiling to get your inner groin to rotate up. Now, get your tailbone to move down towards the ground. And then come forward on your tippy toes and bend your knees, bend your elbows. Sorry, your knees can totally come down. That would be fine. And then, get a little space at your hip joint. Move the block if you have to, but if you can, leave it in there and you got good setting, awesome. Now inhale up into low cobra. Now this can be another really informative place and blows some of our minds, right? Because a lot of us, without the block in there, we let our legs go into external rotation. So I'm asking them to stay in neutral, right? My pinky toes stay heavy. Now imagine me putting a block on your tailbone and moving your tailbone down to the ground, right? And come on down. Let's do that again without so much jibber jabber. Inhale, inner groin up. Feel that release in the low back and the buttocks, right? No compression. Exhale down. Hearing that one more time. Inhale, low cobra. Now I'm going to leave my knees down personally. You can lift yours. We're going to transition back to downward dog. So pull that low belly up, find your pubic four, move into the block a little bit, and then straighten your arms. Knees up or down. Exhale back, downward dog. Take a second, bend your knees, lengthen spine, and then start to reach those heels down. And again, imagine me on the back side of your thighs, pulling the block back. I would never get it from between your thighs because you're moving into it a little bit, but it just pulls your inner groin back, aka neutral rotation in the thigh, aka spaciousness in your pelvis and low back. That's hopefully what we're gaining here. Walk your hands back to your feet. Inhale halfway up. Don't move your hips back, but move the thighs back. Exhale, fold. Coming up one more time here. Inhale. Exhale, hands down to the heart. Let's take that block out. And I want to do that series one more time without as many stops to try to retain the information even though the block isn't there, right? So come on up to the top of your mat. Don't imagine, stand evenly in your feet and then imagine you have the block between your thighs, right? So I'm going to act as if it's still there, my verbiage. Inhale, reach those arms on and up. Even here, my thighs want to move forward. Exhale, fold. This is a huge pattern of mine, by the way. Inhale, reach the chest forward, thighs back, inner thighs. Exhale, bend your knees, plant your hands, step to the top of a push-up. So much easier without that block, isn't it? Now imagine that block staying in there. It's fine to bring your knees down. Go ahead and start to bend your elbows. My thighs move up to the ceiling. My tailbone moves down. I create space at my hips. Inhale up, low cobra. This, more than any of the other poses, I think can be detrimental if you have that pattern. Get your pinky toes heavier and imagine that block and your inner groin moving up to the ceiling, right? It's not always detrimental to bodies, but it can be over time. And we're going to go ahead and come on up through a half push-up to downward dog. Pardon me. And then now, if you look back and you can see your inner heels, that means you have the pattern I've been talking about, right? So imagine that block between your thighs. Tuck your heels behind your ankles so you can't see them. Lengthen the spine. And then let's come into child's pose. Knees wide, big toes touch. You can have your arms out in front of you. I'm going to suggest the diamond position, fingers towards each other, elbows separate. But that said, you can also bring your arms by your side with your palms up. One of those two, unless, of course, you're favoring your body in some way and you need something different. Not a problem. Come into the breath. And this is going to be our Shavasana. Now, of course, you're at, or I don't know about home, but you're on your own. So you could take a moment, lay down on your back, and take a few moments there, or do other stretches, right? But if you're on a time commitment, bring your hands by your knees and push the body up. Bring your knees in. If you can't sit back on your heels, you could put a block in there. We won't be here for long. Sit up nice and tall. Find the middle of the buttocks bones. Reach them down actively to lengthen the spine up. Hands together at the heart. Inhale. And as you bow your head in, just taking a few moments of gratitude for the space and time for this beautiful body that you have. Any conditions, injuries, ailments, like it doesn't look the way we want it to, all those things, like, oh my God, we're so lucky we have one that did what we just did. Namaste, friends. And again, thank you for being willing to go slow and workshopy, I call it. I think the information we gain, and if we bring it with us, can transform our practice, our body. And if you're someone who tends to compress that low back and pelvis, with time, again, it's not guaranteed, but it can be really hard on a body. So all my friends with low back issues and sciatica and SI joint and neuropathy from the hips and all these various things, I do think trying to change that pattern, if it is your pattern, can be super beneficial. When I started to play with it, I was doing it when I was cutting my vegetables at the board, washing my hair in the shower. It was everywhere, that compression and that pulling in. And I had a lot of issues. I no longer have sciatica or too much going on with my SI joint instability. Yeah, so there's hope. Namaste.